So today I want to talk about AI a bit more and how you can introduce it into your workflow. It's one of the reasons why I've slowed down on some of my videos because I have been looking into AI a lot more. My wife and I a while ago created a podcast, and long story short, I mic'd it incorrectly and I did a bad job of it where when either one of us spoke, you could hear each other's microphone in the other person's mic. You basically had mic wash. There was no way of separating out the two voices from each other. It was all into one. We thought that the podcast was going to be a complete loss, but I hung on to the audio, and now I have been messing around with Notebook LM. I took the original audio and I came over here to Audio Overview, and it basically created a podcast for us. And I couldn't tell you what the prompt was. I didn't save the prompt. That's a failing on my part. I try to save my prompts for this very reason. So save your prompts. But I couldn't tell you what the prompt was because I just clicked generate. As you can see, it was just cycling through prompts. That was just a generic prompt. And it ended up creating the podcast. And if you like this kind of content and you think that you'd like to hear more of it, my wife and I have plenty more that we could talk about. Leave a comment, let us know, and we'll go from there. I'm just going to play some generic footage over the podcast of me designing some business cards. All right, enjoy the podcast.
I want you to just close your eyes for a second.
Okay, my eyes are closed.
Imagine you run a business, and not just any business. You sell hammers.
Hammers.
Yeah, high-grade industrial construction site hammers. You can literally smell the sawdust in your showroom. Your hands are calloused.
I'm feeling very rugged right now.
Exactly. Your brand is tough. It's durable. The whole vibe is we build things.
Got it. I am holding the hammer. I'm wearing the flannel.
Perfect. So you decide it's time for a rebrand. You need a logo that really captures the essence of who you are.
Right, time to update the look.
So you hire a professional designer. You sit down for the big kickoff meeting. You look them dead in the eye and you say, I have one absolute requirement. I need a sewing machine in the logo.
Wait, a sewing machine?
A sewing machine.
For a hammer business?
Yes, specifically a vintage sewing machine. Your grandmother's sewing machine, to be exact.
I feel like I'm missing a step here.
Well, when the designer asks you why, you get all misty-eyed. You explain that your grandmother brought that exact machine over from Ireland on a boat.
Oh, wow.
You tell them it represents grit. It represents starting from absolutely nothing. It is the emotional core of your family's history. It's what motivates you to get out of bed every single morning.
Okay, I see the problem. I mean, that is a beautiful, deeply personal story.
It is.
But if you put a sewing machine on your sign, people are going to bring you their pants to hem. They are not going to bring you their drywall to smash.
Exactly. And that right there is the paradox we are starting with today.
The sewing machine versus the hammer.
Yes. In the source material we're diving into today, they literally call it the sewing machine versus hammer paradox. It is that precise moment where personal identity just crashes headfirst into market reality.
It's the ultimate conflict, really. The clash between what the business owner feels in their heart and what the actual customer sees with their eyes.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are unpacking a source that is, honestly, it's a little bit painful.
Very painful.
A little bit hilarious and just incredibly educational. We aren't looking at some polished, academic textbook or a scripted corporate presentation.
This is the good stuff.
We are analyzing a completely raw, behind-the-scenes recording. It's a candid conversation between two industry veterans. They're actually a husband and wife team.
And the dynamic there is so key to everything we're going to talk about.
Oh, absolutely.
He's the veteran designer. He is hyper-focused on the visuals, the pixels, the craft. And she's the marketing expert. She's focused on the strategy, the audience, the psychology.
And in this audio we got, they are prepping for a video series on client relations, which basically means they are airing all the dirty laundry.
All of it.
They are talking about the projects that went spectacularly wrong, the clients who just ghosted them, and the literal psychological warfare involved in trying to sell creative work to stressed out people.
What I love about this deep dive
Yeah.
for you listening is that it strips away all that corporate veneer.
Yeah, the jargon.
All right, usually when we talk about design or marketing, we use words like brand synergy and KPIs and
Optimization.
exactly.
Yeah.
But these two, they are talking about fear. They're talking about ego. They're talking about why incredibly smart people make absolutely terrible decisions when they get overwhelmed.
We are going to cover a ton of ground today. We're going to talk about why clients self-sabotage, looking specifically at this wild story they call the rebel client.
That story is a roller coaster.
It really is. We're also going to look at the anatomy of overwhelm, why industry jargon freezes people like deer in headlights, and we're going to settle, once and for all, the massive difference between marketing and sales. Because apparently, everyone gets that wrong.
Literally everyone. It's the single biggest point of confusion they discuss in the whole recording.
But I want to set the stage here first. This isn't just for graphic designers or agency owners.
Not at all.
If you have ever tried to sell an idea to a boss, or if you've ever, say, hired a contractor to fix your kitchen, or even if you've just tried to get a committee to agree on where to go for lunch, this deep dive is for you.
Because at the end of the day, this is about human psychology under stress.
Yes.
It's about how we communicate value and how we deal with this simple fact that sometimes people just want the sewing machine, logic be damned.
So let's go back to that sewing machine paradox. In the recording, the designer, the husband, he says something early on that really struck me. He said, logo design is basically a therapy session.
Oh, that makes total sense to me.
Right.
Think about it from the owner's perspective. A business owner treats their business like their baby. It's their identity, it's their late nights, it's their bank account.
Yeah, their blood, sweat, and tears.
So when you, as an outsider, come in and say, hey, I'm going to change how your baby looks to the world, that is high stakes, deeply emotional territory.
It really is. And he illustrates this perfectly with a case study about a client they call the rebel.
Oh man, the rebel. This story is basically a tragedy in 3 acts.
It truly is. So set the scene for us.
Okay, so you have this company. They have a very masculine, industrial, almost aggressive vibe.
Rough around the edges.
Exactly.
Mm.
For years, their entire brand identity was built on being the underdog, the anti-corporation. They were the gritty guys you called when you didn't want to deal with the fancy suits.
And visually, what did that look like?
They had this icon of a truck, a really gritty, kind of clunky truck. It wasn't polished at all. The source describes it as looking like it had been drawn on a napkin in a dive bar.
Which worked for them.
It worked perfectly because it signaled to their specific audience, hey, we are one of you. We aren't corporate sellouts.
But as businesses do when they are successful, they grew. The source mentions there was a generational shift happening, a transition from father to son, a whole new management team coming in.
Yep.
And this new team decided they were done being the little guy. They wanted to go to war with the big competition.
And we should clarify, the competition here isn't just the guy down the street. We're talking about a massive, entrenched, national brand.
The 800-pound gorilla.
Right, the kind of company that is in every single state. The rebel client wanted to stop fighting for local scraps and start eating at the grown-up table.
So the brief they gave the design team was incredibly explicit. They said, make us look corporate. Make us look like a regional powerhouse. We want to look just as sophisticated and professional as the big guys.
It's a classic level-up strategy. You dress for the job you want, not the job you have.
So the husband and his design team, they go to work. And according to the audio, they completely crush it.
They deliver exactly what was asked for.
Exactly. They create this visual identity that is sleek, it's modern, it uses clean lines, it looks like a legitimate Fortune 500 company. They bring it into the presentation room expecting champagne and confetti.
And instead,
A total meltdown.
they get panic.
The source calls it the overwhelm. The client looks at this beautiful, polished logo, which, keep in mind, is exactly what he asked for in the brief. And he doesn't see success.
Oh.
He sees betrayal.
This is a full-blown identity crisis playing out in a conference room. He's looking at this clean corporate logo, and suddenly he feels like a complete sellout.
He feels fake.
He feels like he's disrespecting the original players. You know, the guys who literally built the company, driving that gritty truck. He feels like he's actively erasing his own history.
It's the sewing machine all over again. He wanted the hammer, he wanted the corporate success and the national contracts, but he was emotionally anchored to the sewing machine, to that gritty truck.
So what ends up happening?
Self-sabotage.
Yep.
Pure, unadulterated self-sabotage. He forces the designers to take that old, clunky napkin drawing of a truck and literally jam it right into the middle of this sleek, modern corporate logo.
Oh, that just physically hurts my heart hearing it.
The designer in the source audio, he sounds so defeated when he tells this part. He says he wanted to be corporate, but he retreated to his roots.
And the result is a mess.
A total Frankenstein monster of a brand. You have a sophisticated visual language on the outside that says, we are modern and capable, clashing violently with a central icon that says, we are messy amateurs.
It creates massive cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
When your potential customer sees that, they don't think, wow, what a cool, rich history.
No.
They think, these guys are confused. They don't know who they are. If they can't even figure out their own sign, how are they going to handle my project?
But the question you have to ask is, why couldn't the designer just stop him? Why couldn't he just say, hey, man, this is a terrible idea. We aren't doing this.
He tried. The audio makes it clear he pushed back. But the source makes a really profound point here. Sometimes logic simply cannot penetrate an emotional anchor.
Right.
The client isn't looking at the logo as a functional marketing tool. He's looking at it as a mirror. And if he looks in that mirror and doesn't recognize himself, his family, his struggle, he panics.
The designer literally says, it's crazy to me how psychologically tied people are to their logos.
But it's not crazy, though, is it?
No.
It's deeply human. We attach our self-worth to symbols all the time. The mistake the client made, and honestly, the mistake so many people listening right now might make with their own businesses, is assuming the customer cares about your symbol as much as you do.
Yeah, that's a tough pill to swallow. The customer just wants to know if you can fix their roof or sell them a good hammer. They do not care about your grandmother's journey from Ireland.
Exactly. The sewing machine is profoundly meaningful to you. To the market, it's just confusing advertising.
And this fear, this sudden retreat to the familiar when things get real, it seems to be a symptom of a much broader issue that the source calls client overwhelm.
Overwhelm is absolutely the central villain of this entire deep dive.
The marketing expert, the wife in the partnership, she really breaks this down beautifully. She argues that when a client is being difficult or stubborn or just entirely unresponsive, it's usually not because they're a jerk.
Right.
It's because they are overwhelmed. And here's the kicker. She says often, we, the professionals, are the ones causing it.
We trigger it with our language.
The jargon, oh my gosh, the list of jargon in this transcript, it gave me actual flashbacks.
That's a lot.
CMYK, RGB, bleed, vector.ui versus UX.
To a professional designer, asking a client for a vector file is like asking someone for a glass of water. It's just breathing. It's basic. But imagine you were a baker or a lawyer.
Right.
You don't know what a vector is. You don't know the difference between CMYK and RGB color spaces.
So when the designer sends that casual email saying, hey, just shoot over the vector file and make sure the bleed is set to 0.125 inches, what does the client actually hear?
They hear, I am testing you right now and you are failing.
It makes them feel stupid.
It makes them feel entirely incompetent. And nobody likes feeling incompetent, especially when they are the ones writing the big check.
So what do?
They freeze. They stop replying to emails. They ghost. Not because they don't want the project done, but because they are terrified to admit they don't know the answer to what sounds like a simple question.
And this leads directly into what they call the homework problem. I feel like every freelancer or agency owner listening right now is going to just groan in recognition.
Oh, the dreaded homework. It kills so many projects.
You kick off a project, the energy is high, everyone is excited, and then you, the professional, say, okay, to get started, I just need you to fill out this comprehensive brand strategy questionnaire.
Just a quick 20 pages.
Yeah, please define your target demographic, list your 3 core brand values, and write out your unique selling proposition by Friday.
And the project just dies right there on the table.
Why? Why is that such a fatal error?
Because if the client actually knew the answers to those questions, they wouldn't have hired you in the first place.
That is such a good point.
They hired a marketing expert specifically because they don't know their unique selling proposition. Asking them to define it is like a surgeon handing you a scalpel as you lay on the table and saying, okay, you just make the first incision and I'll take it from there.
It's shifting the labor. And the source says this homework assignment is the #1 cause of projects stalling out.
So how do you fix it? Because the source offers some really tangible, actionable solutions here.
They do. The marketing wife has 2 specific techniques that I absolutely love. The first one she calls the first course.
I really like this dining metaphor.
It deals with the client who comes in with what they call the hunger. The client is anxious, their business is struggling, so they want everything right now.
They want the whole menu.
They want the logo, the new website, the
Yep.
Facebook ads, the billboard, the automated email campaign. They're throwing a million ideas at you in the first 5 minutes because they're just panicked about survival.
And the amateur mistake here is to say, yes, let's do it all. You take the money, you start 10 things at once, and you drown.
Exactly. So her technique, the first course, is different. You don't say no. You validate them. You say, that is great. I love that energy. Those are all fantastic ideas, and we can definitely get to all of that.
The classic yes and approach.
But then you pivot. You say, but let's just start with the first course. Let's just get the logo right today. Once we eat that, we'll look at the menu again and order the next thing.
It's brilliant because it acts as a psychological focusing mechanism. You are taking this massive, overwhelming, chaotic cloud of anxiety, and you are condensing it down to one single manageable task.
It lowers the temperature in the room instantly.
It completely reframes the goal. It turns, we have to save the company today, into we just have to pick a font today.
Much easier to handle.
Infinitely easier.
Her second technique addresses that homework problem we talked about. She calls it the genuine interest approach. And the designer husband actually admits on the tape that he is terrible at this.
Oh, he's the technician. He wants the specs.
Yeah.
Give me the hex codes. Give me the dimensions.
Right. He's sitting there with his clipboard thinking about pixels and margins. But the wife does something completely different. She doesn't send a questionnaire at all. She has a conversation.
She literally just asks them about their day.
There's this great example in the transcript. She talks about asking a client about a weekend picnic. Just, oh, you went to the lake this weekend. How was it?
And, the husband is sitting there rolling his eyes thinking, we're billing by the hour. Why are we talking about potato salad and pontoon boats?
But she's doing something incredibly sneaky. She's listening. The client starts talking about the lake and how they love it because it's quiet, and how their kids can run around safely without them worrying, and how they really wish their business felt a little more like that safe, family-oriented, peaceful, reliable.
Boom. There it is. That's the brain strategy.
She didn't ask, what are your core brand values? She asked, how is the picnic? And she extracted the core values from the answer.
That right there is the definition of a professional service. It is translation.
Translation, I like that.
The client speaks in stories, in memories, in emotions. The professional's job is to translate that raw emotion into strategy, color, and execution. If you force the client to do the translating by filling out a form, you are feeling them.
You're shifting the burden from the scared client to the capable professional. And that builds stress.
And trust is the only thing that actually kills overwhelm.
So we've talked about the client who is scared, the one who freezes. But what about the client who is, well, helpful, or at least thinks they are being helpful?
Oh, the collaborator.
This section of the source material genuinely made me wince. The collaborator trap. We have to talk about the massive disconnect between how a client sees feedback and how a creative professional sees feedback.
It's a chasm, a Grand Canyon of misunderstanding.
So picture the scenario. A client walks into your office. You've been working on a design for days. You present it on the big screen. They look at it, tilt their head, and say, I hate that wheat stalk in the corner. Get rid of it.
Now let's pause and look at the designer's internal monologue in that exact second.
The designer is devastated.
Crushed.
They are thinking, I spent 4 hours on that wheat stalk. I researched historical agricultural iconography. I meticulously balanced the line weight. I tried it curved. I tried it straight. I tried it in yellow, gold, and brown. This isn't just a doodle. It's a highly calculated structural decision.
So when the client casually says, get rid of it, the designer hears, you are bad at your job and your professional judgment is fundamentally flawed. It feels like a direct personal attack.
But the client, what are they thinking?
The client thinks they are having a great time.
Right.
They think, hey, look at us. We're brainstorming. We're a team. I'm contributing to the creative process.
They legitimately think they are helping.
They have absolutely no idea that you already tried the version without the wheat stalk 10 times yesterday and rejected it because it threw the whole logo off balance. They don't see the unseen graveyard of revisions. They only see the final result.
Yeah.
So they just toss out comments like, make it blue or move that over there, thinking it's just a fun collaboration.
So the designer is sitting there silently sulking, feeling disrespected, and the client is basically high-fiving themselves for being such a good partner.
Exactly. And this dynamic leads to a really critical insight from the source about how to read client behavior. Specifically, how to read client silence.
The ghosting signal.
This is a metric that I think everyone in client services should basically tattoo on their arm.
They break it down to a very specific time frame, the 3-day rule.
It's incredibly simple, but so accurate. If you send work to a client, say a draft or a proposal, a logo concept, and they like it, what happens?
You hear back fast.
Super fast.
Usually within 20 minutes to an hour, you get the email, love it, great job. The enthusiasm is immediate and obvious.
But if they hate it,
silence.
complete radio silence.
The source says if you haven't heard back in 2 or 3 days, it's a guaranteed no-go. They had it.
But here is the fascinating psychological twist that the marketing wife points out. Why do they ghost? You would think if they hated it, if it was terrible, they would be angry, or they would instantly demand a refund.
Right, you'd expect a quick email saying, fix this immediately, this isn't what we talked about.
But they don't do that. They go quiet. And why? Because they are actually trying to protect your feelings.
That is so counterintuitive.
It really is. They know you worked hard. They likely like you as a person. So the idea of picking up the phone and saying, hey, this thing you spend a week making sucks, feels really mean to them. They view rejection as a personal slight against you.
So they just avoid the conflict entirely.
They procrastinate the awkward conversation. They think, I'll figure out how to let them down easy tomorrow. And then tomorrow becomes next week.
So silence isn't them being busy with other work. Silence is them actively dreading the breakup.
Precisely. Silence is the loudest form of rejection in this business. And the lesson here for the service provider is huge. You have to be the one to break the silence.
You can't just wait around. You have to send the email saying, hey, I haven't heard from you. Does that mean we missed the mark on this one?
You have to proactively give them permission to give you bad news. You literally have to say, look, it's okay if you hate the wheat stalk. Just tell me, my feelings won't be hurt. Once you relieve them of that guilt, they will open up and talk to you. But if you just sit there waiting for them to come to you with criticism, you'll be waiting forever.
It's so much like dating. If they don't text you back after the first date, they aren't interested. You either move on or you confront it. But don't pretend they just lost their phone.
It really is a relationship business at its core.
Now, sometimes the client doesn't ghost you. Sometimes they stick around, they communicate, but they insist on a truly, fundamentally terrible idea. We talked about the sewing machine earlier, but there is another story in the source that I think is even more illustrative of this. The Orange website.
Oh, the Orange website. This is a cautionary tale for the ages.
Set the stage for us on this one.
Okay, so the client is in the skincare industry. High-end luxury skincare products. Now, I want you to picture the beauty aisle at a high-end department store. What colors do you immediately see?
A lot of white, maybe some soft, pale blue, seafoam green. Clean, clinical, maybe a little metallic silver or rose gold. It feels fresh.
Right. There is an established visual language to that industry. Those colors signal cleanliness, health, science, purity. Now, this specific client comes into the agency and demands that her new e-commerce website be orange.
Like a sunset orange, a soft peach.
No, like a traffic cone orange. Heavy, dark, highly saturated orange everywhere.
Why? Is there a special ingredient in the product? Is it heavily vitamin C based or pumpkin? Then why orange?
Because it's her favorite color.
Of course it is.
That's it. That is the entire strategic rationale. I like orange. I own the business, so my business should be orange.
The designers must have fought this tooth and nail.
They absolutely did. They sat her down and explained basic color theory. They explained industry standards. They explained that in consumer psychology, heavy orange usually signals caution or cheapness or a construction zone. It does not signal luxury face cream.
But she wouldn't budge.
She dug her heels in completely. I am the client. I am paying you the money. Make the website orange.
So the design team made a choice here. And it's a controversial choice in the agency world. They decided to let the client fail.
It's a really tough call. Do you fire the client and lose the revenue because they won't listen? Or do you take the money, do exactly what they say, and build the disaster? They chose to build the disaster.
And what actually happened when it launched?
Sales completely flatlined for an entire year. And the crazy part is the actual product was good, the marketing copy was well written, but people would click an ad, land on the site, get hit with this aggressive wall of orange, and subconsciously think, this doesn't feel like premium skincare.
The trust was instantly broken by the color.
And they would bounce immediately.
But that's a whole year of lost revenue, a year of frustration and burning through ad spend.
Finally, after a year of pain, the client comes back to the agency. She is humbled, she is tired,
Mm.
and she finally asks the magic question. What else can we do?
That's the white flag. That's the surrender.
That's the exact moment the door opens for the professional to do their job. So the marketing expert, the wife, steps in. She doesn't say, I told you so. She doesn't rub it in. She just says, let's try a pivot.
Did they have to scrap the whole site and start over?
No, that's the interesting part. They kept the wireframes. They kept the structure and the copy. They literally just changed the color palette. They softened that harsh orange, turned it into a very soft peach or coral, and introduced all those feminine, clean colors. The crisp whites, the soft creams, the colors the audience actually expected to see.
They aligned the visual identity with the market's psychological expectation.
And the result. The source states that sales increased literally overnight.
Literally overnight, just from a color swap. That is
But
wild.
it proves definitively that design isn't just decoration. It's not just making things look pretty for the sake of art. It is a highly functional lever for revenue. A simple color change can literally be the difference between a failing business and a highly successful one.
But the client couldn't see that initially. She was looking in that mirror again. She saw orange equals my favorite thing. The market saw orange equals construction zone.
And sometimes the harsh reality is that the only way to break that emotional anchor is to let them feel the financial pain of failure. You cannot talk them out of the sewing machine. You just have to let them build the giant sewing machine sign. Watch 0 people walk through the door for a year, and then gently help them fix it.
Wow. Now, there is another villain in these stories, though. It's not just the stubborn individual owner causing problems, it's the dreaded committee.
Oh, the committee is where good design goes to die. It really is.
There is a story in the source material about a website redesign that was triggered by a complete and total misunderstanding of data.
This is a classic telephone game problem within a corporate structure. So a committee at this mid-sized company decides they desperately need a new website. Why? Because leadership is getting complaints. Customers are saying, your website sucks, it's hard to use.
So the committee assumes the design of the main site is bad.
Right. But they didn't actually look at the underlying data. If they had, they would have seen that the complaints were actually about a third-party payment portal that was linked off the main site.
Oh, no.
The front door, the main website, was completely fine. It was working perfectly. The room inside the house, the third-party portal, was messy, but the committee blamed the front door.
So they essentially fired the architect of the front door.
Exactly. They ordered a total expensive redesign of something that wasn't broken.
Oh.
And because it was being driven by a committee, they instantly fell into groupthink. They sat in a boardroom and decided they wanted a cool new look. And to this specific group of executives, cool meant heavy masculine.
Dark browns. Heavy blocked out sections. Aggressive, thick fonts.
Yes, for a website that served a broad general audience.
The marketing expert, the wife, she is looking at the actual analytics while they're demanding this. She knows for a fact that 50% of their daily user base is women.
And she knows that if you put up this dark, aggressive, highly masculine wall, you are basically hanging a giant "No Girls Allowed" sign on the front of the business. She literally calls it tuning out the audience.
But the committee didn't care about the audience, did they?
No, they only cared about what looked cool to them in the boardroom. They were designing for each other. They were trying to impress their colleagues and their boss, not the actual person entering their credit card.
This seems to be the fundamental tension in all these stories, whether it's an individual or a group, the massive gap between what I like and what actually works.
It is. It's the difference between art and design. Art is for you. It's self-expression. Design is for the user. It's functional communication. If you confuse those two things in business, you go broke.
Which brings us perfectly to the other massive misconception in the source material. And this is a big one. It's the difference between marketing and sales.
This is the great misconception.
I feel like people, even professionals, use these words totally interchangeably. You constantly hear people say, I need to improve my sales and marketing. Like it's just one big bucket called get me money.
But the source defines them as two totally distinct mechanisms, requiring different skills, with two totally different goals.
So how exactly do they define them in the audio?
They define marketing as the slow grind. Marketing is purely about awareness. It's about waving your arms in a crowded room and saying, hey, we exist over here. We solve this specific problem. Marketing generates leads. It gets people to walk up to the door and look inside.
And sales.
Sales is the action. Sales is opening that door, shaking their hand, looking them in the eye, and getting them to actually take out their wallet. Marketing gets the phone to ring. Sales is knowing what to say when you pick up the phone.
There is a horror story in the source that perfectly illustrates what happens when a business confuses these two things. The Excel sheet story.
This one physically hurts me as a marketer.
So the marketing expert walks into a new client's company. She sits down and asks, okay, the marketing campaigns we built are running. We were generating hundreds of leads. What happens to them once they come in?
And the client just points to a computer monitor in the corner and says, oh, we put them all in an Excel sheet.
And she waits. She asks, okay, and then what do you do with the Excel sheet? Who calls them?
And they look at her and say, nothing.
Nothing.
We do nothing. They were just passively collecting names. They're a literal digital pile of gold sitting in a spreadsheet, just gathering dust.
Why? How does a business do that?
Because they fundamentally thought marketing was sales. They thought, well, we paid for the marketing. We got the lead. Our job is done. The money should just magically appear in our bank account now.
It's literally the underpants gnomes business plan from South Park. Phase 1, collect leads. Phase 2, question mark. Phase 3, profit.
Exactly. They entirely missed the middle step. The client expected the marketing campaign to magically convert into cash without a human being ever having to pick up the phone to call these interested people.
And the absolute worst part is they probably blame the marketer when revenue didn't go up.
Oh, 100%. They probably said, the leads are weak. No, the leads are fine. You're just completely ignoring them.
The source heavily emphasizes that marketing is a slow grind. Clients always expect it to work by Tuesday. They launch a campaign on Monday and want a viral hit by the weekend. They want the magic bullet.
But the reality is, you are competing against a billion other signals for a person's attention. You are competing against Netflix, TikTok, the news, the kids screaming in the background. It takes repetition. It takes immense patience.
And speaking of patience, this leads to a very interesting, almost counterintuitive piece of advice for the service providers listening. They call it the sit-on-it technique.
This is one of those dirty little secrets they promised at the beginning of the recording.
And it goes against every single instinct I have as a professional. I always thought speed was the ultimate virtue. If I can do a task fast, I should deliver it fast to show how good I am.
The designer husband thought that too for a long time. Early in his career, he wanted to impress his clients with his blazing speed. So if a client asked for a small revision, he would do it in 10 minutes and hit send immediately. Look how efficient I am. Look how dedicated I am.
And the marketing wife looked at that and told him, stop doing that immediately.
She told him to wait 3 days.
3 days. Even if the work is already done.
Even if the file is sitting perfectly finished on his desktop, do not send it.
Why? I don't understand that.
It comes down to value perception.
Explain that.
Imagine you go to a really high-end, expensive restaurant. You order a complex, delicate souffle. If the waiter brings it out from the kitchen in 2 minutes, what do you instantly think?
I think it was sitting under a heat lamp. Or it was microwaved. I think it's cheap.
Exactly. But if it takes 25 minutes, you sit there and think, the master chef is back there meticulously crafting this specifically for me.
So if I send the logo revision back in 10 minutes...
The client thinks, well, that was incredibly easy. Why am I paying you $500 an hour if it only took you 10 minutes of your time? It massively devalues the work in their mind. It makes you look like a short-order cook flipping burgers, not a master chef.
So you wait 3 days just to create the illusion of effort?
It's partly theatrical, yes, managing expectations. But the designer admits something really interesting happens when you do this. He says that once he actually started waiting, the work genuinely got better.
Because he wasn't rushing to hit send.
Right. He gave himself room to breathe. He would finish the logo, let it sit on his desktop, and then look at it with fresh eyes on day 2. Maybe he catches a tiny alignment error. Maybe he realizes the color needs a slight tweak. So the delay wasn't just a psychological trick for the client. It actually improved the quality of the final product.
It shifts the entire power dynamic. It moves you from being an order taker, jumping when they say jump, to being a thoughtful professional dictating the pace of the project.
And here is the hard truth of the industry. Clients respect thoughtful professionals. They routinely abuse order takers.
Man, that is a hard truth.
It really is.
So we've covered the psychology of logos, the design traps, the massive marketing misconceptions, but this deep dive really wouldn't be complete without looking at the hard, practical business lessons they share at the end. The source material spends some time on how to actually survive financially as a service provider.
And it all starts with vetting clients. They talk about what they call the money is green phase.
We have all been there. When you are just starting out, you have no portfolio, you have rent to pay, You take every single job that comes through the door. $50 for a nightclub flyer. Sure, I'll do it.
And you almost always regret it.
The source talks about the ultimate red flag to watch out for, the investor client.
Run. Just run away.
The pitch always sounds exactly like this. I have a great idea. It's going to be the next Facebook. It's going to revolutionize the industry. I just don't have any money right now. But if you build the whole thing for me for free, I'll give you tons of exposure.
Or they say, I'll give you equity in the company. Or we can set up a profit share once it takes off.
Why is this such a dangerous trap for creatives?
Because of the golden rule of skin in the game. The source is very clear on this. If the client isn't risking their own actual capital, they will never value your time.
Because it's free to them.
Right. If they aren't paying hourly for revisions, they will demand endless, infinite revisions. They will constantly change the scope of the project. They will ghost you for weeks.
If they aren't losing sleep over the financial cost of the project, they will not respect the creative process.
Exactly. The project will drag on forever, and you will be left holding the bag while you go broke.
They also talk about payment structures, which is super practical, and this is a great tip for anyone who sends invoices. They talk about evolving from a simple 50% upfront model to a 50-25-25 split.
This is absolutely brilliant for maintaining cash flow. 50% down just to start the project. 25% tied to a very specific major milestone in the middle, and the final 25% at completion.
Why add that extra split in the middle? Why is that milestone payment so critical?
Because remember the homework problem.
Yes.
Clients constantly stall out in the middle of projects, they get busy with their actual jobs, or they can't figure out how to write the content they promised you, so they just stop replying.
So if you are waiting for the final 50% to get paid, and the client stalls for 6 months.
You are starving.
Yeah.
You have done 80% of the work, but you can't bill for the final payment because technically the project isn't finished.
So that middle milestone payment protects you.
It keeps the cash moving into your business even if the client is dragging their feet. It protects the provider from the client's own internal disorganization.
Finally, they talk about RFPs, requests for proposals, the overwhelming allure of big money contracts.
The whale hunting.
They mentioned some specific big clients they chased early on, a large mugs company, a massive mining corporation. These huge corporate contracts look amazing on paper. You see the dollar signs.
But the reality of servicing them, massive crushing stress.
Endless bureaucracy, layers of middle management, legal reviews.
The dreaded committee nightmare we talked about earlier is magnified by 10.
The source actually validates the strategy of purposely sticking to small or mid-sized businesses. Sure, the checks are smaller than a multinational mining corporation, but you can actually get the owner on the phone. You can make fast decisions. You avoid the red tape.
It's a completely valid lifestyle choice for an agency. You don't have to chase the massive whales if the whales are going to capsize your boat in the process.
Sometimes the small fish are just way tastier and easier to catch.
Without a doubt.
So let's bring this all back together. We have covered a massive amount of ground today.
We really have. We started with the sewing machine. That deeply rooted emotional anchor that completely defies all business logic.
We learned that client overwhelm is the true enemy of progress, and that it's usually our own fault. It's caused by our industry jargon and our lazy homework assignments.
We talked about the crucial, fundamental difference between the slow grind of marketing and the direct action of sales, and why you can't just hoard leads in an Excel sheet and expect to get rich.
And we learned that sometimes you just have to sit on that finished email for 3 days to make the client actually respect the work you did.
The psychology of perceived value.
So here is the final thought I want to leave you with today. It comes back to that ghosting signal.
Right, the 3-day rule.
The source mentions that when a client gives feedback, even really harsh, annoying feedback, like, I hate that wheat stock, they genuinely think they are collaborating, they are engaged in the process. But when they go silent, that is when you should really worry.
Because silence is protection. They are protecting your feelings, but they are absolutely rejecting your work.
So ask yourself this. In your own professional relationships, whether you are the buyer or the seller, is silence actually the loudest form of rejection you are dealing with? And are you brave enough to break that silence and just ask, hey, do you hate it?
And on the flip side, look in the mirror. Are you the client insisting on the sewing machine right now? Are you the one letting your personal history and ego get in the way of your future success?
That is the really hard question. Are you selling hammers, or are you just telling stories about your grandmother?
Thanks for diving deep with us today.
See you next time.
All right. Well, like I said in the intro, that was just a fluke mess up on my part that ended up turning out to be something that my wife and I both agree that it sounded pretty good. At one point, we were going to put our own voices, our interactions, and I was going to mic us in different rooms, and we were going to kind of do a Zoom call. But we just thought, you know what, let's just put it up as is because it's pretty good. I mean, it nailed a lot of the stuff that we talked about. It was really good at summarizing, probably a little bit better than we did. But the computer does sound a little artificial here and there. Again, if you like this kind of content, you want to hear more of it, by all means, leave a comment and let us know. Okay, well, I hope you learned something. I hope you liked what you heard. Please subscribe. That would be great. Helps the channel. And thanks for stopping by. You have a great day. All right, take care. Bye-bye.